Hi, welcome back to Prep Bytes. And let's just go on and continue creating in our complete chat application. Okay, so far what we've done is we've been able to go in and make a generic mockup of our application over here. It has the sidebar and this chat area container that we have created in the previous session. And as you can see, I just went in and I added up a few bunch of extra CSS, which I'll take you through in a minute's notice. But the main purpose of this session would be to go in and create up our welcome page, our create group page, and as well as a login page so that you can go in and log into this particular application. Okay, so we're going to be creating in three things in this particular video. And to start off with, there's just a small thing I had added in and changed into the code of ours, which is, if you remember in the previous session, if there are, we had discussed this, that if there are multiple messages, okay, so there are just two messages, fine, it will stay within the container that we have. But if there are more than four messages or something as in such, then what we want to do is we want to go in and set our overflow to that of scroll. Now, the moment I do this, what happens is we'll be going in and getting this really thick, scroll bar right onto the right hand side. So let me just show you this over here. Okay, so this is what we will go in and get. So I kind of didn't want it to go in and view in this particular manner. If you want, you can go in and change the width and everything as per your convenience or as per whatever you please. But I just want to go in and hide it entirely. Okay. But the problem is, if I go in and I change the overflow mode from scroll to hidden, then the remaining set of components that are getting rendered will not be visible. But I still want the scrolling functionality, right? So the way to go in and work around with this is really simple. All you'll have to go in and do here is we're using the pseudo selector over here. Okay, so this is for the specific scroll bar, right? So this is a pseudo class element that we have over here, and we are basically just utilizing this particular pseudo selector in order to set the display property of the scroll bar to none. So what would happen in this case is that you are not going to go in and see the scroll bar, but the functionality of the scroll bar where the content is scrollable, it will still go in and persist. Okay, so you can see it just goes off, but I can now go in and scroll across all the messages. Okay, we'll go in and add the same property down to our previous conversations component as well, so that all the previous conversations can be scrolled through within our main container. Okay, so it needs to stay within the main container, right? So we're going to go in and do so. Apart from that, our UI goes in and works properly regardless of whatever the resolution is. Okay, so we try to keep it completely responsive. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in and start with our welcome page, right? So in the welcome page also, as you can see, so this is once you go in and you sign in or when you log in, this is the page that will be visible to you. And the thing that is noticeable here is that, yes, the sidebar is still going to be present there. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to swap out this chat area component with another component that will be our welcome page, right? So we're going to go in and quickly create up our welcome page, another component for that will be coming in place of the chat area, which will help us to create groups. And we also need another component, okay, which is going to be separate from the sidebar, because the sidebar will not play any role at that point. So we are also going to go in and make a really simple and sweet looking login page. Okay, so this is going to be what we'll be doing in here. And the process is going to be fairly simple. So we'll start with the welcome page. Let me directly go in and jump back into VS Code. Okay, there we go. I'm going to close out all of these that I'm not going to be needing. I'm not going to be needing the chart area either. Okay, so within our app, as you can see, we have our main container, and the main container in terms goes in and renders out our sidebar for sure. And then we have our chat area. Okay, so instead of this chart area, let's say I want to go in and display another component. So the way we'll be swapping these components out of view and into the view is going to be by using routing, which we'll be going and implementing in later. But for the time being, I'll say we are going to go in and focus on creating all the requisite components, right? So I'm going to go in and create up a component for the welcome page, right? So let's just call this as welcome.js. Put in our standard boilerplate component code here. There we go. I'm going to also create another one, which will be for create groups. Okay, so create groups, I'll have to change its this extension. So I'm going to just change it to JS. There you go. Okay. So that also has been taken care of. So we have created up these components, and what we want to do is instead of the chat area, okay, because currently, as you can see, we're going to be swapping out the chat area with that of the welcome area, or the create groups area, or the online users area, or the available groups area. So it's going to keep getting swapped, right? So we'll be achieving that by using, by going in and utilizing our React Router DOM. But for the time being, though, as you can see, I just went in and removed it off. So now there is no there is no chart area that is being displayed out. Instead of this, we're going to go in and bring in our additional components. Let's say we'll start with our welcome page component, right? So I'm going to jump back in and I'll just go in and refer the design that we have, okay? And we'll try to go in and replicate it exactly as it is, okay? So let's go in and get started. Okay, so this is what we have managed to go in and cook up so far. So this is the welcome page container. Okay, so it kind of follows the same 30-70 proportion as all the other containers that we've created. And the best thing about this is that as we're using Flex altogether over here, and I'm using some relative units, this entire UI is going to be responsive as well. Okay, so even if I'll go in and change the content as you can see in here, it does go in and change its alignment and size accordingly. Okay, I've also went in and given it some bottom border as well. Okay, so that you'd get this small line at the bottom side. So I went in and I'd given that. The color seems to be a bit inaccurate, but we'll go in and fix the colors in the at the end, right? So I guess this kind of goes in and takes care of the welcome page that we want to go in and create. Let me quickly take you through on how exactly we go in and implement this. It was fairly simple. So as you can see, I have a container, I have a component that I created called as welcome.js, and within which all I had to do was just drop in the image, the logo that I have, and this particular text, and text directly to people present in chat rooms. So we can add in a bunch of additional points as well later on, but for the time being, I'll just keep this, for the time being. So I went in and I put them inside of a container, and I made the display as flex. Now the reason so is because I want to go in and align all of these items horizontal in the center and vertical in the center as well. So as the display mode has been set down to flex, and I changed the flex direction to column, both of these elements, the image element and the paragraph element, both can be now aligned to the very center of this particular container. I've also went in and set the flex grow property to 0.7. So because of which, what would happen is it will again go in and maintain the 70-30 proportion as that is needed. Then after that is just a few, I'm using the gap property to increase the gap between the amount of elements that are present inside of your flex container, and some additional properties here and there like font family and color, text color, and that's it. Okay, so this kind of goes in and makes up our very first, this is the first component that the user will be interacting with, which is going to be the welcome page UI. Okay, so you can see this is what will go in and show up. Now, at any point, if he goes in and clicks on any other clickable button, we will be able to go in and render out some other component in place of this welcome component, right? So, for example, later on, when we go in and implement it, if I click on any of these conversations, that particular conversation should go in and get loaded up. All right. So in that scenario, it would go in and look like this. It would kind of go in and feel like this. So there will be a quick swap, as you can see, and the conversation will go in and get loaded. We haven't implemented it yet. We'll be doing that by using React Router DOM. But for now, all I'm doing is I'm just going and building up all of these components and adding some styles into it so that it looks good. Okay. All right. Fine. So we've created up our welcome page. All right. So I'm going to just bring this back in. All right. And there we go. So we created up a welcome page. Now, the very next thing that we're going to go in and need is going to be our, the logo is unrecognized React component. Wait, let me just quickly go in and see where it has went wrong. Logo. Oh, wait a second. I'll just drop it inside of curly brackets. That should fix the problem. Okay. Nah, it doesn't. Wait a second. Logo. We have imported it correctly though. Oh, okay. So I guess might not have saved it initially. So okay, so that fixes it apparently. Okay, so this is how we what we are ending up with. The very next thing we're going to do is to create up a component so that you can create a group. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just go in and drop a new component here, which will help us to go in and create groups. So it's going to be fairly simple. We just need an input box and a button, and we'll just throw in the additional set of properties that we've already went in and seen so far. Okay, so this will help us to go in and render out, or render out a component that can help us to create groups. Okay, so we'll go in and create this particular one. So the idea would be again fairly the same. We are going to go in and create one more component, okay, which is this create groups component that I've created, and this create groups component will also go in and get swapped with or from with the welcome component. Okay, so whatever is the component to the side of the sidebar, we'll go in and keep getting we'll go in and swap them out according to whatever feature that you want to go in and get. All right, so I'm going to go in and import this. So let's just get the create groups component loaded up. Okay, so if now you can see the create groups component is showing up, and now it's going to be again a bunch of code so that we can go in and get the proper UI. All right, so let's just go in and get started on with this as well. Okay, so this is what we have. So this is the create group component. There isn't much in it. So the moment you go in and you click on this particular button, which is this create group button, the third one. Okay, if I click on this, then this particular create group component should go in and pop up, where you'll be able to go in and enter whichever group that you want. Okay, so I'll say my sample group. After you go in and you enter this, you can click on click on this particular button, and it should go in and create up a group in our backend. Okay, so this is the container that we created for the purpose of our create group component. Okay, now the next group component that we're going to, before we go in and we start creating the next component, let me just take you through on how exactly did I go in and build this. So it was fairly simple. I didn't have to go in and do much here. The thing here is I just have a create groups container, inside of which I've thrown in the same input box that we've used for other purposes as well. The same input box that we used for the side panel is the same one. Okay, no other differences whatsoever. The few things that changed is the placeholder, and then I've added in this button. Now, in order to go in and get that proper, alignment thing, like again, I'm setting the flex as 0.7. So this is flex grow. The flex grow property of the create groups container is also going to be 0.7. Why? Because the sidebar will be 30% of the main container, and the create groups container and all the other containers which will be swapping out in the right hand side, they will be 70% of the main container. So I'm giving 0.7 here as well. And if you see for the welcome container also, it is 0.7. If you go in and see for the chart area container as well, it would be 0.7 as well. Okay, so we are kind of maintaining this. Now, in order to go in, so I've used in this align self center so that, all the items that are present inside of it, like in the cross axis. So we need it in the cross axis, right? So for vertical alignment, I set align self as center so that it would go in and align itself in the very center. A bit of padding here and there, okay, and margin and border radius as well. And the thing here is I set the display mode as flex and justify content as space between. The reason so is because within this entire flex group, this flex, I have two elements, right? So if I'm taking you through back over here, this particular flex box, all right, so I'm going to just show you the layout thing. So this is the group container. Okay, this is the create groups container, as you can see, which basically just goes in and has two elements present inside of it. There are just two elements, which is the text and then you have the button. Okay, so I wanted both of them to go in and be present at two extreme ends. So I just went in and used space between so that they, there is going to be some amount of space. Then whatever is the available space, which is not taken up by any content, will be put in between both of these elements. So that's why I went in and used space between. And this kind of just goes in and sorts out our, our requirement at this point. Okay, so as you can see, we have a really, simple and minimalistic component over here, which I can go in and use to enter the group name that needs to be went in and created. Okay, so this and all is pretty good. Now we'll need to go in and add in routing so that this goes in and pops up. We'll be doing it in the upcoming session. But first and foremost, let's just go in and get all the components created out. Okay, now let's just move in and create our login component, right? So the login component is something which should go in and show up even before this main container. So we cannot go in and put our login container or login component to the side of the sidebar, because the sidebar should only be accessible if you have logged in, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to just go in and create a new component altogether, which will be rendered in place of our main container. So we already have created this main container. So instead of this main container, we want to go in and render out another component, which will be our login component. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and quickly create this login slash signup component. So for the time being though, we are only going to go in and create the login component, and later on we can go in and add in, similar to how login would work, we can also take in and change in the name of the component and make it into a sign up component as well. So it's going to be exactly same as the login component, because it will be taking in two information, which is the username and the email ID. And once that is done, sorry, the username and the password, not the email ID, the username and the password. So in both the cases, regardless of whether it is a login component or a registration or a sign up component, we just have to change in the names, because the input elements or the input that needs to be taken are going to be the same two pieces of data, which is going to be your username and your password. Okay, so let me just go in and get started on with this. Now what we'll do here is we want to go in and keep the same design altogether, right? So just to show you what exactly are we going to be implementing, this is how our login page would look like. It's pretty simple, nothing much altogether. So as you can see, there's going to be a logo over here in the 30% of the container, and onto the right hand side of the container, we're going to go in right hand side of the image, we're going to have in the 70%, we'll have our login component, which will just have some text. We'll have a bunch of input boxes and a login button. That's it. So the moment someone clicks on this login button, if the authentication is done correctly, then they'll be redirected onto the search page. From the search page, they can use the sidebar to go in and render out whichever components they want to the right hand side of the sidebar. So this is how our entire UI has been structured on, right? So what we'll do now is just to directly jump into our VS Code, and let's just go in and code this out. Okay, so I'm going to go in and quickly make this particular login component. And once we're done with that, we'll be easily able to go in and, we'll have a pretty brief set of components ready for our chat application. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is basically just divide the whole thing. So within the login component, okay, so I'll say login container. Okay, let's just call it as a login container. So this will be rendered out in place of the main container, because we don't want the sidebar to show up at all. Okay, all right. So we have the login container. All right. So the login container will go in and have two such areas, I would say. It's going to have the image container. All right. So I'll say image container, and alongside of that, it should go in and have the login container. Okay. So not the login. Okay. Or I'll say the login box. Let's call it as a login box. Okay. So these are the two things that our login container will have as per our design. And what we just need to do is just add in all of these elements and then put in the appropriate CSS, and we'll be able to go in and make that particular component. So before I go in and jump forward, let us just go in and make sure that our app, rather than going in and rendering out the main component, the main container, we will go in and render out. Okay, let me just go in and put it here. We are going to go in and render out our login component. Okay, so the login component, we will automatically go in and get it imported out over here. And if I show you the final output, right now for the time being, there isn't anything that is being shown, because as you can see within our app, we have our login container, and the login container apparently is completely empty. Okay, so we'll bring in whatever is required in for this login container, and we can create up our design as per we can create up the elements or components as per our design. So let's just go in and quickly get started on with this. Okay, so far this is what I have made in already for our login component, and as you can see, I am rendering this out instead of the main container because this is going to be the first thing that someone will be able to access once they visit our particular link, right? So all I've done over here is to create in this login container. Within the login container, I'm going to have my image container and my login box, and I've used Flex to go in and put them side by side, as you can see. And then inside of the image container, I use Flex again to go in and get this image in the very center, right? And then I have this login box inside of which I'm going to be going in and putting the input boxes as well as the button so that you can go in and sign in. So I have this text that I've already put in, which is log into your account. It's there at the top because by default, it is going to be the alignment is going to be for that of Flex start. So what we'll do is we'll go in and add in some more Flex into it. Now, when it comes to going in and creating these input boxes, I would say a much more easier approach right now, as we're already using Material UI and we've already integrated it to our React application. I'll rather just go in and use these text fields for taking the inputs of my username and password, right? And it's going to be fairly simple for us to do. You can just go in. I'll say we'll go in with the standard one. Okay, let's just go with the standard one here. Okay, I'm going to copy this. Bring it into my React application, and right beneath the paragraph element, okay, I'm going to go in and do it, put it right beneath the paragraph element. We'll need to import it as well. A really cool shortcut is to just keep your cursor at the end of the component's name and hold control and press space, and it'll just show up a really simple way for you to go in and import it in VS Code. Okay, so just a VS Code keyboard shortcut, I would say, that you can go in and utilize. Okay, so once this is done, if I take you back into my browser, let's just go in and see. So now you can see I have a pretty standard, a pretty good looking input box where I can go in and enter my username. Okay, so this is fine, but we need to take care of the color schema. We'll go in and do it eventually. Okay, but for the time being though, yeah, we do have a pretty good and an all animated text area. Okay, it's a text field. All right, so I'm gonna change the label. Let me change this to enter user name. Okay, so that would kind of go in and do so. Okay, so it's gonna initially go in and say enter username. We're gonna do another one for the password as well. Okay, so for password, again, if I go in and see, so read only for password. Okay, they do have one for password. So let's just go in and see it in the sandbox. And for password, I guess all we'll have to do is to just, there we go. So we have disabled password. Okay, so type equal to password. We just need to change the type. Okay, fine. So we'll go in and do so as well. Let me jump in and bring it back onto my VS Code. It's already open. Great. Okay, and over here, I'm gonna just add this new one over here. So this is gonna be for the password. Okay, and I will go in and go in with another one. So outline disabled, right? No, outline. We are going with an outline one. Okay, let's just get the outlined one, right? Okay, so variant is equal to outlined. Okay, fine. So I'll use variant is equal to outlined, and we're going to keep it the same for both of them. Okay, so we'll have a username and a password, and all of these are going to be aligned. We'll align them vertically on top of each other. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to need is a button. Okay, so again, I'm going to go and use the Material UI library for this particular purpose. I'm going to go to buttons, and using Material UI is fairly simple, right? So all you need to do is just to import up that particular component, and you can easily use it within your React application. Okay, so I'm going to just go in with the contained one or the outlined one. Let's just go with the outlined one because we are keeping it the outline style for the entire thing. So I guess we have a component called as the button component that we're going to be that we'll have to import. So let me just input this one here as well, and I'll say log in, and that should do it. Okay, we're getting an error. So it's mainly probably because of it, to see what the error is. I'm pretty sure it is just because of the reason that we have not, button, we have not imported it. Let's just import it. So control space. So button from the Material UI, the MUI library of ours. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly go and save this. And if I switch back into my browser, you should be able to see the login button available over here as well. Okay, now comes the part where we need to go in and align them in the center of this component. So a really simple thing to do. All I will have to go in and do now is to go into this login box. We already given it. Okay, we haven't. So I'll give it now. So I'm gonna go in and set the display mode as flex, justify content center, and align items center. There you go. So the moment I go in and do this, and if I jump back into my browser right now, okay, so you'll be able to see that, okay, all the items that I have are now aligned to the center, but the problem is not vertically though, they are aligned in horizontally. So what I want is I want them to be present vertically one after another. So the property we'll have to go in for, as we are already using flex, is going to be flex direction and set it to column. There you go. And now if I take you back to my browser, you'll be able to see that, okay, so we have all the items that we have over here aligned up thoroughly. Okay. Now what I can do is there is no particular margin between all of them. Now what I can do is, as it's a flex box, we can use the gap property. Flex gap similar to that works the same exact way. So I'm going to use a gap property, and let's just give like 10 pixels of gap between all the items in my flex container. Okay. So there you go. So when I go and add that in, you can see we have a pretty good, minimal login form that we can go in and fill in. You can put in your user ID password and you can click on login. Once you click on this login, you'll be redirected onto our main container, which will go in and show up over here. Okay. So one thing I would do though is to take this paragraph and let's give it some, log in text. Okay, I'll just make it a bit more on the bigger side because it needs to show, right? So what we're going to do here is, let's just take this class. We're going to go with .login text, and we can increase its font size maybe to okay, so let's just go with relation to our viewport. Okay, so I'll just go with 10 VW. Okay, and okay, that makes it really big. Okay, wait, I go with, okay, sorry, so let's just go with 2 viewport width, and I'll say still we can do quite a bit. Okay, let's go for instead of this justify items center, what if we go and use spaced evenly? Okay, so if I use space evenly, okay, the spacing is a bit too much, I would say, for my liking right now, but okay, or we can use space around, but then again it will go in and increase the overall thing. Okay, so we'll just keep it to center for now. Okay, we'll remove this out, keep it to center, and let's just increase the gap to 20 pixels. Okay, so we're going to increase the gap up by 20 pixels so that all these items are going to go in and show up there. Okay, now for this login text, I'm going to give it some margin at the bottom. Okay, let's just give it an additional 20 pixels of margin for the login text. And okay, what else can we do? Okay, so this is also fine. I can give it some more padding, maybe. Right. Okay, this will do. Okay, so for the time being, I'd say this looks pretty good for our login page. Okay, so this is the part where you're going to go in and enter your user ID and your password, and you're going to click on the login button, and it will redirect you to the main container if the authentication succeeds. Okay, so we're just making up all the elements that we are going to be requiring for our application slowly but surely. And in the next session, we're going to go in and build our components that will go in and show us all the online users and all the available groups that you can go in and join onto. Okay, so that will be all for this particular video. See you in the next one.